Welcome in to the FireZone show. Back at you after taking a little holiday break, a little Christmas break. But we're back this week to talk about the Ravens defense in particular, coming off that Bengals game. Not going to be super fun game to talk about, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about it because that's what we do. And then look forward a little bit to the game they have coming up this Sunday against the Rams, which should be an interesting one too. We got two left in the regular season, and there's still some playoff positioning, especially in the AFC. There's still stuff up for grabs, believe it or not. I know people may look at the last four games and the losses, but there's
believe it or not, the Ravens can still win the division title.
It's still a chance. It's hard to believe. But anyway, before we dive into all of that, joined as always by the man, the myth, the legend, Dennard Melton at the FireZone show. How you doing, man? How were the holidays? How's everything going?
Holidays were good, man. Holidays, taking care of the kids and spending way too much money and eating way too much. Gained 3 pounds and got to figure out how to lose it now.
Man, I wish I could say I only gained 3. But I I've been out there on the trail, been out there trying to jog a little bit, get back into it, work my way back up into it. Things were good here. Same thing with the kids. My kids are 10 and 14, about to be 15. So yeah, it only gets more expensive as they get older.
I got 5 and 3, so I'm not too expensive yet. I'm skirting.
Oh man,
game system hasn't come into play yet.
I'm telling you, those days. The thing back then, like, yeah, it's not super expensive, the stuff that they want. Some of it can kind of be annoying, like if it makes noise and lights up. But it's not like super expensive. But now, man, it's like any kind of device that you can think of. It's game systems, it's clothes. Oh, I told you about the clothes, right? About the stuff my son was looking for. Them Jordan Black Cat 4s. Good Lord of mercy. I looked up the price on them things.
Go ahead and put those back. Go ahead.
No, they never got close to coming up in here because I saw how expensive that they were. And then he had some other stuff on there too that I just like. I remember them, but I was like, nah, I didn't think they was that expensive. It was some New Balances. I think they were like 550s. I think he had 2. It was either like 995s or 550s. And them 550s, they were like green and white. They was like 300. I was like, dang. So we had a little Christmas Day drama, but I'll save that for an offline conversation. Twin brother and sister got ugly at one point, but wow. It was all patched up. It was all patched up, calmer, cooler heads prevailed, but my man was a little salty over something that his sister got. No fault of her own, but he's a little salty about it. But it's all good now. Anyway, let's get into this Bengals game. Unfortunately, a loss, 4th loss in a row for the Ravens. 41-21. I think the Bengals put up 41 in the earlier game this season too. So
yes, they did. Well, close to it.
Yeah. So, some consistency there from the Bengals. But, everybody's heard about this game by now, particularly Ravens fans and Bengals fans. We know the Ravens were super shorthanded. I think they had 9 or 10 guys elevated from the practice squad just for that game. Bunch of guys on COVID lists. Obviously, we know about the injuries. Had a couple guys get dinged up in that game. Anthony Averett went out pretty early in that game. Mm-hmm. And so, it kind of went from bad to worse. And Joe Burrow and that receiving core, they were rolling. Put up a lot of passing yards, quite a few touchdowns. And, they were rolling. Yeah. So we talked pre-show about, hey, we might not go through our normal routine of going position group by position group in this game, just because of how it was, with the cast of characters the Ravens had out there. You got to do what you got to do. But overall, for you, what are your takeaways from this game? I've got one. I was talking to you about it earlier. I didn't know if I was going to use it. I think I am going to use it, but I want to hear your takeaways first.
It is, as a defensive coordinator, when you look at games like this, it makes you realize how nice it is to have good players. Not just players who can go out there and play the game, but guys who are smart, guys who can get lined up, guys who can make plays and tackle. When that is removed and you see kind of the super basic of what your defense looks like, that's what Sunday looked like. Once Anthony Avert went out and they really didn't have a corner where they could rotate the secondary and rotate help and things of the sort. It was just like a firing gallery. Just go out there, whatever play you feel like running, it was probably going to work because, in the first half, they tried to play some zone. They got picked apart. Second half, they tried to blitz some more. They really got picked apart. So, I mean, you take it for what it's worth. You understand the totality of it. You try to find the good in it. But at the end of the day, it's just one game.
Yep.
It's one performance. And this year it just wasn't good enough for, the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals sweep them. But guess what? You were shorthanded the first time. You're shorthanded this time. Things happen. But guess what? You got 2 games in front of you. You're getting everybody back. That's pretty much what you're going to have. Hopefully Jimmy can give you some snaps. I didn't see the injury report today. Was AA practicing? He did not practice.
Okay. Nope. Wait, missed again today too. He missed Wednesday and today.
Oh boy, it's gonna be fun. But I will say this about the Rams passing game, and we'll get into that later. But getting back into the Bengals, I would say the D-line played as you would expect the D-line to play, with bodies missing. Queen was still flying around making plays. He was okay. It just, when you don't have your horses, that's what it looks like.
Yep.
And if I'm, this is just me speaking on the Bengals. If I'm the Bengals, it's a win, but I'd be a little worried. But that's just me.
Yeah, it feels weird talking about certain guys when you look at a game like that. But you know this because you tell me all the time, especially when you go back and you watch the films. Never as good as you thought it was. Never as bad as you thought it was. Yep. And so you find some guys who played well individually. Despite, you talked about defensive line with the guys that they had in there. I thought Isaiah Mack had a couple plays, got a couple sacks. One of them was kind of like a cleanup sack, but one of them was just a clean one-on-one, little heavy swipe, and was on Burrow. I think Broderick Washington continued to kind of play solidly. And I'd be remiss if we didn't another one of our guys, Tony Jefferson, coming back in the most snaps that he's played in a couple of years in a game. And my man was doing a little bit of everything. He had a sack, he had a PD, he had a tackle on special teams. I mean, you could tell that man was just happy to be back.
Man, you never seen a man so happy in his life just to be getting snaps, flying around. But that's what this defense has been missing, in a sense, all year. Just a guy who, even if he picks up a cheap penalty every once in a while, he's just flying around trying to make plays, trying to get the excitement level at a fever pitch so people would play with more intensity. And I just feel like if they can get some bodies back, maybe, but at the end of the day, it's just, you need more from your front seven if you're going to do anything. You need to cover up what the problems are back there.
Yeah. And they got some pressure on Burrow at times, but he seemed to just be able to move in the pocket, slide, sometimes, come out of a sack, sometimes, get out and scramble a little bit. It's not like, I mean, there were certainly times where, he had time back there and kind of was just surveying and slicing and dicing. But there were other times where they got quick pressure on him and, he had to make something happen, and he did. So,
Right.
Like you said, if they could just get home, some of those times to make him hold the ball, a beat longer, or not be able to get the ball out at all. And there's some parts of that game, maybe not the entire game. There's some parts of that game that look different, if they were able to do that. But like you said, some of that too goes into not having all your guys out there. Maybe if that's Calais Campbell, different guys, Justin Houston, maybe they get him on the ground, instead of him coming to those things.
Well, think about it. If they get to stop before halftime and keep it 24-14, different ball game.
Yeah, that long play to T. Higgins that on
third
and
and 16 was just that's why I hate 3-man rushes. I hate them. They need to be somehow erased from a defensive coordinator's memory, because that shouldn't happen.
And particularly when you have you've got 3 double teams.
3 all over the place. Backs covered, everybody checked out, and
where they didn't have one? Like 6 feet up in the air. Yeah. That's where they didn't have a double team. And that's where T. Higgins went to go catch the ball.
But once again, we are looking at a call. And I know everybody likes to get behind Wink. Great play caller. But the last 4 weeks, when your team has been struggling offensively, first couple weeks, and then this last 2 weeks have just been whatever defensively. But you got to make better calls. And I feel like he was just putting guys in bad binds, and then it just gets exposed. And you see that in the last 4 games. It's just bad call, bad bind. Like the Devontae Adams last week. Like, why are we on with rookie practice guys? Are you man covers down on the goal line, and Green Bay is going to run a pick or some sort of whatever they're going to do? It's going to be a pick to get them open. And we're sitting there in man coverage and no one's communicating. Like that happens too much. It just happens too much.
I might have been lined up over at the pylon by Robert Jackson. You ain't coming out here, buddy.
Stop
coming out here. You ain't coming out here, buddy. You
ain't coming out here.
You got to go back inside somewhere. But no, you're right. That's that specific example with like pick plays, particularly down in the red zone. That has been a thing that has haunted them many times over the years. I think back to the Christmas Day game against the Steelers years ago, where AB had to get one in, kind of late in the game there. Similar kind of pick. I mean, not the same play, but just concept, man coverage, rubbing guys off of each other to get somebody open. And I remember somebody asked me back then, and I feel like somebody asked at least once or twice a year, how come they don't switch those more often? How come they lock it and they try to just play through, like either over or under or whatever? I didn't have a good answer. I was like, I don't know. I don't know why they don't switch it more often.
It's a defensive philosophy.
Okay.
I personally want that switch. We would call like a combo call or a banjo call or whatever, 2-on-2 call. Whatever your 2-on-2 call is, you call it right there. You say, I got first inside cutter, you got first outside cutter. And that's it. But it seems like the Ravens for years just lock it. And Jimmy Smith has been the culprit of getting picked for 5 years. And it happens in every Cincinnati game, every Pittsburgh game, and every Cincinnati game. Any division game it happens, and we're gonna see it again this weekend with the Rams on the goal line, and we it's like our answer to cover zero. I don't know. We'll roll the dice and see what happens.
It happens so much that when it happens the other way, where they actually make a call and they switch it, it stands out. Because I remember there was a game last year, and I should remember the exact game, but it was Peters. It was the Peters side, and I forget who was in the slot at the time. It might have been Humphrey. I'm not sure if somebody was in the slot to his side because they kind of went twins on that side or slot, and he knew it. We know MP, smart dude, very smart dude. He knew what was coming, and he called it. And he just told, he's like, "Hey, I'll stay out here. You take first in." And they switched it, and that was dead. QB had to look to the other side, and I think he ended up like throwing it out of bounds or something like that. But I mean, obviously those guys aren't out there, and that's probably a factor too. Is you don't have guys with that kind of experience to make those kinds of calls. But this again too, and I know you would know this better than most people, is this is football, right? At the end of the day, and these guys at that level, they've all been playing their whole lives, and they understand those calls and those checks. So even if you're new and you just got here and you haven't had a lot of time to work together and talk together, somebody back there like Jefferson, you could see him kind of making that call to the corners to kind of let them know. Brandon Stevens, maybe he's still kind of feeling his way on some of that stuff. But when you had a guy like MP at corner, who was smart enough to do that, because oftentimes it's the safety, communicating to the corners to give them these calls. But MP calls a lot of stuff himself. He's telling other people, even across the field, he'll be yelling at the corner on the opposite side, like waving at him, like, "Hey, we're doing this.
Coming your way." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when you got a dude like that out there, that can help your defense a lot too. Not just what he can do physically. We know he's a ball hawk. But just the mental side, of how that can help your defense too. So that's been a big part that's been missed. Plus, I just, I respect the hell out of that dude's game. I think he's just a super, super smart dude on the field, and I miss him. Saw those dudes.
Yes, I miss him dearly. I think, we'll get into this as the season unwinds, but they're going to have to rebuild that entire secondary.
Yeah. Time has come today. They sure have. Before we go to the Rams, one other thing I'll get your opinion on, and you kind of touched on it when you talked about, hey, if I was the Bengals, even with everything that they did, I wouldn't necessarily be smelling myself too much. Obviously, there was some saltiness among the Ravens fan base about some of the things, whether real or perceived, that were coming from the Bengals after that game, because the Ravens fan base is thinking, hey, you rolled up some big numbers on some practice squad call ups, and basically not our regular guys. Maybe you need to chill out a little bit, with all of that. Obviously, people might remember the comment Wink had during the week earlier about, hey, let's not put a Hall of Fame jacket on Joe Burrow just yet. Joe Burrow damn sure remembered it because he was asked about it a couple times in his presser after the game, and he point blank period said, hey, you know what, I didn't think it was necessary, but you saw what happened out there on that field. Right. So Joe definitely had it in the back of his mind. But what do you think about that? I mean, to me, some of that is like, look, just go back and look at last year. They beat the Bengals twice, right? 27-3 in the first game, and what was the second? 38-3. So they curved off them 2 times last year. And guess what? Shoe was on the other foot this year. I mean, sometimes that's how it goes. But anyway, what do you think about all of that? This is a non-story, right?
It's a complete non-story until next year. And in that locker room defensively, they'll have a chip on the shoulder. I think there was Bart Scott talking about it today, about the red dot. Yeah, that is real. That's not just in the pros. That's in college as well. You remember certain players, you remember certain things they say. And it's not malicious, but Joe Burrow might want to wear an extra rib pad next and I'm not saying they're going to take nasty hits. I'm not going to say they're going to do that.
Yeah, it's not dirty.
It's not dirty. but he's going to get shoved. He's going to get manhandled in the pocket. That doesn't mean he's going to get hit a lot. That doesn't mean he's going to get sacked a lot. But he's going to end up getting roughed up in the pocket. People are going to grab him, spin him around. They're going to grab his arm and yank him. Like he's going to be walking back to the huddle. And people are going to bump into him. Like you're going to see
off like that dude did to Kamara in the Snake's game. Snatch his towel off him.
Yeah, just do random dumb stuff the entire game. But when you get a good shot, don't waste it.
Yeah.
And like Bart Scott said, and if everybody remembers, 2000 AFC Championship game, Tony Siragusa beats the left guard, does a little swim move, and he turns into a flying whale on Rich Gannon. So you got to remember, Rich Gannon torched the Colts a couple years before that, and Terry Siragusa was on that team. So people remember things that happen.
Yeah.
And when your moment comes, you get your payback.
Yeah. And that's what I should have said. Instead of saying non-story, like non-story from the standpoint of like how it's playing out in the media. Yeah. But on the field, between the teams, I mean, I think always in division games, you got certain guys on certain teams, and yeah, you remember things.
You make it a point.
You hold on to things. And I was telling you earlier about the movie analogy. I said Joe Burrow is it's like Jaws, right? Jaws, gigantic shark. Everybody thought Jaws was the bad guy in the movie. Jaws is the villain. But Jaws was where he was supposed to be. He was in the water, and he was doing what he's supposed to do, eating things. It's what he does, right? You want to come to where he is, he's going to do what he's supposed to do. He's going to eat, right? And Joe Burrow was Jaws last Sunday.
Yes.
He was in the pocket where he was supposed to be, and he ate. Okay? That's what he did. But to the point you just made about next year, we all know how the movie ended. Jaws does not survive. It's a movie. And the mistake that Jaws made was he got greedy. He was no longer where he was supposed to be, right? They put the cable in him. He's going all under the water, get ready to drag the boat down, tearing the boat up. But then he decides, you know what? No, that's not enough. I'm going to turn back. I'm going to come aboard. I'm boarding. I'm getting on the boat.
I'm getting on.
Okay, now you done messed up. You done messed up, right? You're no longer on the boat. You're no longer in the water, where you're supposed to be. So what do they do? Kick the oxygen tank in his mouth, shoot it, blow him up, right? Obviously, Joe Burrow's not going to get blown up. That's not what I'm saying. Don't come at me crazy. What I'm saying is, as long as he stays in the pocket, gets the ball out on time, identifies the defense, goes through his reads. But once you get outside of that pocket, or once you hold on to that ball a little too long, okay, now the role flips.
Yep.
The hunter now becomes the hunted.
Yes.
And there's some things in those waters that are bigger and badder than you.
So remember, only 5% of the oceans of the earth have been discovered.
We don't even know what's out there. Don't even know what's out there, right? He don't know what's out there. As long as he stays where he's at and does what he's supposed to do, he might be okay.
Absolutely.
But if he gets outside of that, watch out. Didn't work out well for Jaws.
No, I am not responsible for what happens to you.
So all I'm saying, hey, tip your cap to them this year. They did what they were supposed to do, right? When your opponent is down or disadvantaged in some way, hey, that ain't got nothing to do with you. Nope. You line up against whoever is
out of my control.
Yeah, and if they're not on your level, you're supposed to beat them down. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what happened. So, hey,
we'll see what they do next week. Well, this week.
Yeah.
You got to go into Kansas City.
Yeah. Because we just talked about a bigger and badder shark. They got one back there at number 15.
Who's hot.
Yeah. Yeah. And they getting Kelsey back. Tyreek will be, more recovered from being off from COVID than he was last week, because Mahomes came out after that game and said, look, that boy was almost out of breath out there. He was just trying to give us something. But he said Tyree was just running around, just hanging on. So if both of those guys are right, watch out. And like you said, hey, the beauty of having the Bengals or any of the division teams in the division is you get to see them twice a year. And the crazy thing about this year, like you were saying earlier in the lead-in about the playoffs and how things might see them again. Might see the Bengals for a third time. It's possible.
It is
very winning the division, and the Ravens are a wild card. It could happen.
I mean, okay. I was looking at this earlier. So, a couple scenarios for the Ravens. Went out, obviously, you're in. Chargers lose one, you control your own destiny. Miami has the toughest schedule in front of them. I don't think they get out of there with 2 wins.
They got the Titans this week. I forget who they got.
Yeah, and then they got, I think, New England.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
After that or before that, like it's not pretty to end. Mm-hmm. And obviously, New England's going to be trying for division title with Buffalo. So you got that going on. And then let's not get it twisted. The Bengals go ahead and lose 2 games out of the playoffs. Go ahead and lose 2 games. Go ahead and lose to Kansas City, and then you got to go to Cleveland. You don't play very well in Cleveland. We've seen that rodeo before with Cincinnati. I don't care. And Cleveland's defense is not going to roll over, particularly in the secondary for those guys.
It's a division game, and they're still scrapping and clawing. I know they're on the outside looking in right now, but they're like, hey, we get these last 2 games, we can at least get in the mix. So
they went to, they'll be 9-8. Their issue is Baltimore.
Yeah.
Baltimore would have to lose, even if they lose 1, I don't think they get over. I think they might get over because of the division record and things all that stuff. But
strength schedule gets all crazy. Yeah.
All crazy about that. Crazy. But Ravens don't need a ton of help. They just need they need a little luck this week.
Yeah.
They need a little luck.
Yeah.
You're at home. Figure it out.
Yeah, they gotta, always helps when you take care of your own business first. But yeah, they could use, some other things from some other teams. Obviously, Kansas City beating the Bengals would be big. I think Steelers and Browns, they play, right? I think they play this week, Monday night.
This week, I believe,
yeah. Yeah. So, they're both sitting at 7 wins. Pittsburgh's got that tie. Oof, brutal.
I mean, this is an elimination game. Both of them. It's an eliminate game. Pittsburgh knows they got to win out and still get help because of the tie. Yeah. So we'll see.
And Big Ben has leaked the drama, but then pulled it back when he was asked about it. Right? It kind of leaks, hey, this might be my final home game at Heinz, and they ask him about it. Well, I never say anything is 100% certainty. That's just not how I think. So, he likes to put it out there and take it back. He likes to.
I hope they get the doors blown off of that. Jeez. I'm so tired of that cat.
What Josh Bynes say today in his presser? Beat the sleep.
Please. Just beat the sleep.
So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun watching these last 2 weeks, especially on the AFC side. Things are a little more certain on the NFC side. But AFC still pretty wide open. I think only Kansas City has locked up a division so far. Everything else is still kind of going down to the end. So it's going to be fun. Anyway, before we get out of here, let's talk about this Rams game a little bit. Ravens fans probably remember the last time they played the Rams back in 2019. Pretty good night. Lamar with one of the most efficient lines you'll ever see from a quarterback. 15 or 20 for 196 yards and 5 tuds. So it's pretty efficient. And I think he put up like 90 on the ground or something like 85 or 90 on the ground. So it was pretty efficient that night. Touchdowns were flying all over the place. People may remember Eric Weddle was playing for the Rams at that time, and he was complaining that he didn't know where the ball was half the time, going in and out of the mesh. He was like, I didn't know what was going on. And they did a pretty good job against Aaron Donald back then in that game too. Now
they tried the heck out of him in that game.
Little bit of a different matchup this time around. Looked like it's going to be Ben Cleveland, not Bradley Bozeman. And so, for any rookie, but particularly a guy who, hasn't started a whole lot so far this year. He started the last 2 games. I think it's been okay. But AD is another animal. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, they got Vaughn too. You got Jalen Ramsey. Of course, Mark Andrews has been on a tear the last 3 games. You got to think he's going to see a fair amount of Jalen Ramsey in this game. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a good matchup right there. But we're going to look at it as we always do from the defensive side of the ball. Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr. They got a variety of running backs over there.
Cam Akers is coming.
Cam Akers might be back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they got a couple different guys they can roll out there in the backfield. And the scheme. It's wide zone. It's boot, play action. You know what the scheme is going to be. So when you got a guy who's put up the kind of numbers that Cooper Kupp has, almost like a Devontae Adams, do you employ a little bit of that strategy? You can't do it exactly the same. Different guys, they line up, different offense. But do you employ a little bit of that strategy? What's kind of your approach
Absolutely.
to this game?
Okay. I would use – I wouldn't – I don't know if he reaches the level of Devontae Adams, but he's pretty close because of the way the Rams use him. They move him. They love him inside. And I think when I wouldn't be surprised if he played a little bit more outside this week, just because of how banged up the Ravens are in the secondary. Because if you put a guy in the slot, it's easier to double him in the slot. Mm-hmm. It's just easier. Nickels, safeties, you can use linebacker, you can use just about anybody to get in the way. So I would expect them to employ that. But here's where I think the Ravens might be able to slow this down. Because Stafford likes to make hero throws. He don't like taking the safest throw. He likes to show off his big arm. He likes to make make things that way. He struggled a lot earlier, mid-year when teams backed off him. Mm. When they played zone against him, he ran into some issues. So I wouldn't be surprised. Once again, we get a heavy dose of zone, but I wouldn't be surprised. I would be a little bit surprised if I don't see a little more zone blitzes against Stafford. Because I think he runs into problems when you give him multiple looks. If you give him straight looks, you give him good overreads, you give him, because he wants to push the ball down the field. That's what Matt Stafford wants to do. And if you can make him into a check down guy, he's not going to like it. He's going to force throws. And I think if you make him force throws, you've got to make plays. You've got to turn the ball over. You've got to try to go score.
Yeah. Stat Pafford, as some people like to call him. Stat Pafford out there. But hey, he's in a good offense. That McVay offense, it's off the Shanahan tree. Obviously, we saw it a little bit here years ago when Gary Kubiak was here, so we know it. The one thing that the Ravens have continued to do pretty well during the stretch when they've had guys kind of in and out on defense is play the run. Yeah. They've been really good against the run down the stretch. Of course, we know that the 2 Cleveland games, they really kind of locked Nick Chubb down. Packers didn't really get off, kept them under 100 as a team. They haven't allowed a single 100-yard rusher in a while. shoot, you might have to go back to the Vikings.
Yep.
Maybe Dalvin got 100. But they've been holding teams. I don't even know if Dalvin
got I don't think
he had that one long one.
I think you have to go back to Game 4 of 2019.
Oh, okay. So it's not even been this season, but they've been locking down teams, whole teams under 100.
Yeah.
Mostly. The Browns in that second game got right at 100, but the Bengals was 77, the Packers was 96, Steelers was 85. Browns the first time was 40. So they've been doing their thing against the run. And, there was a time when that stretch wide zone, used to give them some issues. The Titans games in particular, we remember that. But there's Derrick Henry back there running it. That's a different animal too. No slight to Cam Akers and Sony Michel, but that's a different animal running it back there. So I think, if they can continue to play the run as well as they have, I think that's going to help for sure, because then that leads into what you were just saying. You're going to, kind of put it in Matt Stafford's hand a little bit more, kind of force them to try to move the ball through the air a little bit more. And I know people will look at the Ravens secondary and say, yeah, of course, that's what you should do. But you just said it. You can sort of force him into some bad decisions, and he'll give some of those
opportunities. You got to take.
He'll give you them balls in jeopardy. He'll give you some of them BIJs where you got a chance to turn him over, or at least get him off the field if you can't turn over. But man, it would be good to get some turnovers on defense. That's been another area where it's been tough. The last couple of games, it's been tough to. I don't think they've had. Man, they had one in the Browns game, I guess. The second Browns game. It's been a while since they've had one. So that would be huge to get some turnovers. But either way, home game, 1:00, got flexed out. It was a 4:00 game now. It's a 1:00 game. Our guy, Coach Evans, supposed to be coming up from Florida for this.
Right.
He's supposed to be in town for the Rams game. So maybe we'll get a chance to connect with him, for a little hot minute or something. Who knows? I don't know what everybody's doing, but I told him hit me up when he's in town. And
probably better after the game than before the game.
Yeah, me, I'm open for whatever. So however he want to do it, we might be able to something out. Yeah, so that at Coach Evans 9 on Twitter, go ahead, shout him out. Sip the Tally Films on YouTube. That's our guy. Support. Love is love. Anything else before we wrap this episode up? I think we've come back off of our Christmas break and kind of hit our stride.
Absolutely. No, I'm good.
Right back at it.
Chat it up.
Absolutely. Hey, you stay safe.
Always.
Sir. As everybody, wish everybody else out there the same thing, because this Omicron, or Marion, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, this thing ain't no joke. It is serious out there.
Stay sane, everybody.
Absolutely. Another friend of ours, friend of the show, Kerry Stevenson, my guy, down there in North Carolina. He lives and works down in North Carolina in the medical field. Said they had their highest single day number of positive cases down there, over 15,000 positive cases just today. The record before that, going back to like the Alpha and Delta stages of COVID, was like 11,000. So he said this Omicron ain't no joke in terms of how contagious it is. He said symptoms not as severe, not seeing as many hospitalizations, but a lot of people are getting it. So just, be safe out there, be smart. I ain't gonna get on my soapbox and preach to you, hey, I got my vax. Yeah, is it your personal choice? Absolutely, but your personal choice affects me, so it ain't really personal. That's all that I'll say about that. We'll leave it there. Hey, as always, y'all be good. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Subscribe, like, download, retweet, all of that. And we'll get at y'all next time. We are out of here.